Polina swung the window wide open and drew a deep breath. She had dreamed of owning a home for so long that she could barely believe her good fortune. Having moved 4 times before, her dream had finally become a reality. The woman extended her arms and twirled joyfully in her new space. She was doubly fortunate because the house came fully furnished. Typically, previous tenants would leave empty shells behind, but the previous owner of this house had left everything intact, taking only personal items and setting off for a globe-trotting adventure. After a 3-year hiatus, she remembered the vacant house, employed agents, and severed the last connection to her homeland. The home had been thoroughly cleaned by a professional company before being listed. Yet the air felt stagnant. Therefore, Polina opened all the windows to let in a gentle breeze, completely disregarding the fact that the neighboring wetlands were teeming with insects until something sizable flew towards her face. Stories like Polina's remind us how small, unexpected moments can reshape our daily lives. If you're enjoying this tale of new beginnings and surprises, please consider supporting us by hitting the like button, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss another one of our captivating stories. Polina didn't have a phobia of insects but preferred to keep her distance. She quickly grabbed a cloth to wipe out the uninvited visitor, assuming it was a housefly and preparing to deliver a deadly strike. As luck would have it, the critter landed on the wall and revealed itself to be a bee. This revelation led Polina to back off, aware that bees were beneficial and that there could be penalties for harming them. While she hadn't heard of such penalties in her new country, she knew they existed elsewhere. Faced with this dilemma, Polina couldn't bring herself to kill the bee. Instead, she gently ushered it out of the window using the cloth. Just as she saw one bee exit, another made its way inside. She quickly dealt with this new intruder and hurriedly shut the window. Polina inspected the entire house but found no other bees had infiltrated any other windows. She concluded there had to be flowering plants somewhere near the bedroom, windows attracting them, but she didn't search. She still had plenty of unpacking to do, so she decided to explore the surroundings another day. She only unpacked what was essential, putting winter clothes straight into wardrobe boxes. After all, Louisiana winters were quite warm, thoroughly content and worn out. Polina flopped onto the bed. She was quickly lulled to sleep by the comforting hum in the background. The following day, the bee escapade continued. A few of the insects returned to the bedroom, prompting Polina to perform some fancy acrobatics to drive them away. Annoyed, she examined the entire house, but still found no flowers near the windows or walls. It was peculiar. Polina looked at her window from the outside. It wasn't any different from the rest. Yet for some reason, insects stubbornly congregated there. This pattern had been going on for days. Each night she'd hear the hum but brushed it off. It wasn't until a supermarket encounter with a jar of honey adorned with bees on the label that she remembered an old tale from her childhood. Suddenly, Polina found herself questioning the source of the humming noise in her room. Carefully, she paid attention to the sounds that night, and to her surprise, the hum seemed to be emanating from beneath her bed. Taken aback, Polina felt the hum take on an eerie tone that frightened her. Terrified, she abruptly got up and turned on all the lights in her room. Instantly, the room's haunting aura dissipated. The humming turned quiet and steady again. With caution, Polina pushed away the flowing bed cover, brushed against the floor, and peered under her bed. But it was empty. Bending over, she recognized the faint hum coming from below the floorboards. Her memory darted back to the bees she had spotted flying through her open window. On one side, this realization reassured her. There was no spooky presence. On the contrary, it also terrified her. She had no idea what to do about this insect invasion. Hastily, she exited her bedroom and securely closed the door behind her. Her decision was made. She'd sleep on the small, rather uncomfortable sofa in the living room. At least there she wouldn't have insects hovering over her. Polina got comfortable and proceeded to use her mobile browser, clueless about getting help for this situation. To her surprise, having a beehive nearby wasn't unusual. There were even individuals who specialized in safely relocating bee swarms. Polina found herself hooked on videos of one such bee ambassador at work, staying up until the early light of dawn. Seeing him move bees with such ease inspired her not to wait. She promptly emailed him, detailing her problem. By morning, she received a reply. The man was astonished that she hadn't detected the swarm initially. Usually, people notice them on the first day and look for prompt intervention. It struck her how she hadn't considered the sound as alien. Polina had spent her entire life in a bustling city where remembering all your neighbors' names was a task. There were many she'd never interacted with, especially those residing on the faraway 25th floor. Polina had relocated multiple times within various regions, but exclusively in towering apartment buildings. The incessant drone of power tools in the complex was a sound she was accustomed to. One resident after another felt the urge for continuous remodeling. When one finished hammering, another next door felt obligated to respond in kind. This became a pattern, with one neighbor succeeding another in a never-ending cycle of noise, contributing to a disturbing symphony. But soon Polina stopped noticing them. The noises simply blended into the atmosphere and became white noise. Just as other people use television as background noise, Polina's life was soundtracked by a TV, a kitchen radio, and a handheld power drill. Living in a metropolis, even in residential zones, meant an uninterrupted flow of vehicles near her home. After dark, she could hear racing bikers and the rambunctious chatter of wandering folks. Cities are synonymous with ceaseless activity, bustling throughout the day and night. Her family once found themselves in a financially constrained scenario, leading them to quickly vacate their rental due to a sudden sale. Their monetary hardships forced them to opt for the least expensive living arrangement available. The family puzzled over why such a large, well-furnished apartment was priced so modestly. However, the mystery was soon unveiled. The building was situated between an airport and a railway station. The sounds of departing and arriving planes filled the air during the day, hovering directly over the residential area. At night, every passing train, the nearby rail tracks, and nighttime flights overpowered the tranquility of their home. The continuous barrage of noise was relentless, a testament to the transport system's 24/7 operations. Back then, Polina was just a child who, like all kids, adapted swiftly to this disarray. However, her parents agonized over the incessant noise. They tried techniques like wearing earplugs or shutting the windows, only to realize it was futile. Ultimately, the constant headaches triggered by the non-stop noise proved too much for Polina's mother. To escape from the harrowing experience, they decided to work around the clock to save enough money to move. However, when they eventually relocated to a quieter neighborhood, it was too silent for Polina, and she found it unsettling. Initially, she needed to keep the radio on to fall asleep at night. Soon, the familiar sounds of neighboring renovations and the hustle of city life returned. Enveloping the quiet with a mellow cacophony she found comforting. Polina had become so associated with city life that she couldn't fathom living any other way. Her mother always nostalgically spoke about her grandmother's cabin in the countryside, but Polina had yet to experience the peace and simplicity of rural life. She loved contemplating the inconceivable, tranquility, visible stars from her very own yard, far-off neighbors. This quiet lady adopted her mother's aspirations. Now she too harbored dreams of owning a quaint dwelling far removed from the city's clamor. She imagined growing up, accumulating wealth, and purchasing a home. A perfect scheme. However, Polina occasionally felt uncertainties. Her parents once set up a dream vacation for the family, renting a cottage in a remote village apart from the city. Several compact cottages housed 2 or 3 beds. A gentle slope revealed a river view. Adjacent to the small dwelling was a grill for barbecuing, a hammock suspended between trees, and fish creating ripples in the river. Her mother indulged in books while rocking in the hammock for hours. Her father turned to angling, while Polina explored the vicinity with children from other lodgers. At dusk, vehicular noise was replaced by the melodious serenades of frogs and nightingales. The vacation homes were situated on a plot surrounding the proprietor's vast house. A little farther, he maintained an apiary and an enclosed arbor housing beehive beds. Polina was bewildered by this unusual arrangement. The proprietor explained that sleeping atop beehive beds offered tremendous health benefits. Her father concurred, albeit grudgingly. In the morning, with a wry smile and a tender sting, he grumbled about a stiff back. They suggested Polina attempt it too, which she firmly declined. What if I accidentally let my mouth open while I'm asleep and a bee breaks in? Fear gripped the young girl. She was fine with the food they offered, especially the honeycombs, but refused to mingle with the makers of these sweets. Post-holiday, those delightful memories lingered with her throughout her life. She decided to move to a quaint house. Riverfront or not, it needed to be hers. However, her parents' experiences indicated that regardless of the grind, financial restraints would hinder homeownership. Hence, motivated through college years, Polina decided to defy expectations. Initially, she picked an unconventional foreign language to learn. While her peers were left scratching their heads, she worked hard, opting for supplementary English lessons. By her last year, she secured an overseas internship independently. Originally, it was for extra cash, but eventually she settled there. Determined to own her home, she tirelessly took on every opportunity that came her way, saving a substantial amount of money. Afterward, Polina received an offer for a stable job at a prominent petroleum processing company in Louisiana. She arrived in mid-December, instantly enamored with her new environment. Before long, she was picking out her own home, one that mirrored what her mother had always envisioned: compact, comfortable, and solely hers. However, an unwelcoming surprise awaited her beneath the bed. The sight had Polina anxiously awaiting the arrival of an expert, while she nervously peeked toward the bedroom. She envisioned bugs creeping through crevices on the floor and infesting her room. Her vivid imagination had her trembling in fright during each buzzing sound. Being aware of the presence of bees, their sound became more distinct to her. What restrained her from contacting an exterminator was a photo of actress Angelina Jolie she'd stumbled upon during one of her travels. She couldn't recall the specifics of the article, but vividly remembered the actress covered in bees. The celebrity was campaigning for the preservation of these insects, which Polina decided to uphold. Finally, Polina heard the sound of an approaching engine. Robert, the expert, arrived fully equipped, even with a vacant beehive in his vehicle. Upon hearing the buzzing sounds in the bedroom, he nodded in agreement. Polina's estimation had been right. Robert inspected the foundation of the building, then pointed out a minute crevice beneath her bedroom window. The shapes of the openings were undefined and changing continuously. Interested, Polina got closer, but recoiled at the sight of a swarm of bees hovering around the crack. The tiny creatures were busily flying in and out of it. "Aren't they charming?" Robert commented with admiration. Polina didn't share the same feeling, but before she could voice her disagreement, he continued his explanation. "We find such situations quite often. Wild bees tend to settle under roofs, in open basements, garages, and sheds. Nearly 90% of homeowners will call an exterminator when that happens. I appreciate your consciousness. Unfortunately, most people aren't aware of the advantages of bees." "I love honey," Polina admitted. "The benefits of honey have been widely discussed. Having always used it as a remedy, her mother kept a jar within reach, so Polina did the same." "What does honey have to do with it?" a surprised Robert asked. "Well, bees produce honey. That's their advantage," declared Polina. This comment seemed to resonate with the man. He gestured wildly with his hands, opened his mouth a few times as if to say something, and then burst into laughter. "How are bees and honey related? Truth be told, honey is the least noteworthy achievement of these creatures." These remarks piqued Polina's interest, drawing her into Robert's in-depth explanation. It was information she had once come across in a magazine article, one accompanied by Jolie's picture. Yet it hadn't previously made an impact. Now, however, it was a revelation. Robert posed, "What do you consider the primary task of bees?" Polina hesitantly answered, "Honey creation?" Why the obsession over honey? Robert couldn't resist asking. Honey, to be precise, is an incidental product. Bees don't produce it for humans. It's stored for their winter sustenance. We humans simply arrogantly plunder these reserves. At best, we substitute it with sugar or syrup, often just taking it. This isn't their primary focus. What exactly is their primary function? Flight, pollen collection? Absolutely, they are pollinators of plants. Those who obliterate bees unknowingly rob themselves of a myriad of goods like roast beef, yogurt, and apple juice. Polina confessed, "I don't comprehend the connection." Robert explained, "It's straightforward. Bees being the most industrious and efficient pollinators, their absence would wreak havoc. Other insects would fail to take over the role. Slowly, fruits, berries, and veggies would vanish. Goods would skyrocket in price, and scarcity would abound. Besides, bees don't confine their work to farms and orchards. They frequent meadows, pollinating wildflowers and legumes, which in turn feed cattle, sheep, and other ungulates. The absence of grass means no domestic animals, thus no meat, dairy, and their derivatives. Picture the barren shelves in supermarkets. A scientist estimated that if bees disappeared one day, mankind wouldn't last more than 4 years. "Your claims are overboard," Polina responded dismissively. Robert was born into beekeeping, so his love and fervor for bees were expected. However, she thought his claims were unfounded. "Honestly, I am actually minimizing it," Robert said with a forlorn look. For a practical perspective, study the price statistics in Scotland in 2012, following the demise of a third of all bees. Brought down by exterminators? Absolutely not. The reality is that bees are succumbing to the pesticides employed by agriculturalists. The insect population is diminishing yearly. "So how can ordinary individuals contribute?" she inquired. Feeling uncertain, she asked, "What can we do to help?" Farmers have a huge role to play, especially at an administrative level. But it's not only them. Everyday individuals, even those without an interest in beekeeping, could offer assistance. This can be as simple as sparing the lives of bugs that come into our homes. If it's just one bee, send it back outside. If you encounter a swarm, seek professional help. Better yet, create a small wildflower garden on your property, or consider putting up bug-friendly structures, or at the very least, help by providing a shaded spot with water and sugar. After resting and fueling up, the weary bee can then resume its journey, Robert explained. He was so caught up in his narration that he accidentally smacked the wall with his brush. This sudden jolt forced him to remember his initial purpose for being there, and he resumed his duties. Polina assisted in shifting the bed to the room's other corner before exiting. Robert was able to lift a board, peek under the floor, and felt a surge of joy when he discovered not just a handful, but a large colony of bees. He carefully extracted the floor area where the honeycombs were nestled, then began to move the panel. At the sight of this, Polina ran quickly into the kitchen, while Robert nonchalantly made his way towards the front door, holding a piece of wood crowded with massive honeycombs that were stuck to the wood like chaga latches onto trees. The insects covered the property, they claimed, crawling onto Robert's body and trailing behind him. Transferring the bees into the portable hive he'd brought with him, he checked for the presence of the queen bee before wearing a satisfied smile. "I'll handle them from here. Just keep your window open for a couple of days. There might be a few bees caught in the curtains or remaining under the floor. Don't fret. All bees follow the queen bee. They'll find their way. Just avoid interfering. Please pardon my mess. Let the gap remain uncovered for now, but you can replace the boards after a few days. Remember to seal every crack to prevent a new swarm from invading," Robert advised. Polina, still petrified, avoided her bedroom for 2 days. Finally, she called a construction crew who worked on her floor, ensuring all openings were sealed. Her bedroom slowly returned to normal. But each night before sleeping, Polina would pause and listen to be sure the buzzing hadn't returned. The interaction she'd had with Robert significantly impacted her. It led her to do extensive research and read many articles on bees. She also watched related news reports and documentaries, trying to understand the vital role these insects play. Unwittingly, thoughts of buzzing bees continually filled Polina's mind. This was a way she could rationalize some of her particular behaviors. As Polina headed out to purchase new drapes at the local superstore, she found herself inexplicably drawn into the pet supply area. Prized pets were not something she had ever owned. Nevertheless, she found herself wandering aimlessly through the rows of products, her gaze adrift on every aisle. She discovered herself pausing before intriguing yet charming miniature structures. While these constructs bore a passing resemblance to a house in shape, their interiors were densely stuffed with vacant strips of reed. Captivated by her find, Polina scanned through the price, and inevitably her fingers gravitated toward this peculiar house meant for bugs. Following this, Polina meandered through her backyard, pondering the right spot for the small dwelling. She chose a tree to perch it on, and around it, she sowed seeds, gradually creating a bed of wildflowers. On days when the heat beat relentlessly down, she made sure to leave a shallow, water-filled tray outside. The water served as just the right amount to hydrate the bugs without posing a risk of drowning them. Polina recognized that her ability to affect the macro-level problem facing bees was limited, but she felt a connection to a broader purpose by doing the small things within her power. She took solace in the idea that the small effort of cultivating blooms and allocating water was a minimal input for a broader variety of food availability. The underfloor of Polina's house ceased to be a hive, but the winged visitors frequently swarmed around her new garden. As the months slipped by, the humble bed of flowers expanded, becoming a thriving pocket of wilderness, and an esteemed spot was marked in the kitchen for a jar holding precious honey. With a twinkle in her eyes, Polina enjoyed jesting that this was her tribute towards bettering human life.